Ben sadece özel kahvenizi denemek istedim. Bu kadar zor mu?
Elbette efendim. Size hemen yöresel mırra kahvemizden getireyim.
Sonunda. Çok teşekkür ederim.
He was worth $40 billion, owned half the skyline of New York, and terrified his board of directors with a single glance. Sebastian Demir was a man who spoke the language of power fluently. But on a rainy Tuesday, at the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan, he was screaming in a language no one understood. The staff was trembling, the manager was hyperventilating, and the security team was closing in. Everyone thought the billionaire had finally lost his mind. Everyone, except for the invisible girl in the corner holding a water pitcher. She was just a waitress, until she opened her mouth and replied to him in the one language that could stop him cold. This is the story of how a single sentence changed the fate of an empire. The silence inside Le Jardin, the rooftop restaurant atop the Pierre Hotel on Fifth Avenue, was usually expensive. It was the kind of hush that cost $300 a plate, where the clinking of silver against bone china was the loudest sound allowed. Tonight, that silence had been shattered. Sebastian Demir, the 32-year-old CEO of Demir Global, was not eating his filet mignon. He was pacing the length of the private dining balcony, his phone pressed to his ear, his free hand chopping the air with violent precision. He was tall, wearing a charcoal Brioni suit that cost more than the tuition of the busboys clearing the tables, and his face was a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. And he was shouting, not in English, which he spoke with a clipped, Oxford-educated accent, but in Turkish, fast, guttural, and terrifying. "Onu mahvedeceğim. Duyuyor musun beni? O belgeleri imzalarsa, onu kendi ellerimle bitiririm. I will ruin him. Do you hear me? If he signs those documents, I will finish him with my own hands." Marcus Thorne, the restaurant's general manager, stood by the service station, wiping sweat from his receding hairline with a silk handkerchief. He looked like a man watching a bomb tick down, but having no idea which wire to cut. "Can someone," Marcus hissed to the huddled staff, "please tell me what he is saying? Is he firing us? Is he buying the building? Is he ordering a hit?" The staff shook their heads. They were trained to be invisible, to refill wine glasses before they were empty, and to ignore the affairs, the bribes, and the arguments of New York's elite. But this was different. This was raw. Ella Vance stood at the back of the group, clutching a crystal pitcher of iced water. At 24, Ella had perfected the art of blending into the wallpaper. With her hair pulled back in a tight, severe bun, and her uniform slightly too large for her slender frame, she looked like just another piece of the furniture. But beneath the uniform, her heart was hammering against her ribs. She knew exactly what Sebastian was saying. "Bana ihanet etti. Kendi kardeşim." He betrayed me. My own brother. Sebastian roared into the phone, kicking a heavy oak chair. It skidded across the marble floor with a screech that made the other diners flinch. "Go." Marcus shoved a young waiter named Kevin forward. "Refill his water. Calm him down." Kevin looked like he was being sent to the gallows. He approached the billionaire with trembling hands. As Kevin reached for the glass, Sebastian spun around, his eyes blazing with dark fire. He didn't see a person. He saw an obstacle. "Diefel! Get out!" Sebastian snapped, waving his hand dismissively. Kevin froze, not understanding the word, but understanding the tone perfectly. He dropped the silver tongs. They clattered loudly. Sebastian looked ready to explode. He ended the call, slamming the phone onto the table with enough force to crack the screen. He gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white, breathing heavily like a bull in a ring. "Get out," Sebastian said, this time in English, his voice dangerously low. "Everyone, leave the balcony. Now." Marcus began to usher the staff away, terrified of losing the restaurant's biggest client. "Move, move! Everyone back to the kitchen. Ella didn't move. She saw something the others didn't. She saw the way Sebastian's hand was shaking, not just from anger, but from something else. Adrenaline, fear, panic. He reached for his water glass, but his coordination was off. He knocked it over. The water spilled across the pristine white tablecloth, soaking his cuff. He cursed in Turkish, a vile string of words condemning the tablecloth, the water, and his own existence. He looked defeated. Ella stepped forward. "What are you doing, Vance?" Marcus hissed, grabbing at her elbow. He said, "Get out." Ella pulled her arm free. She walked calmly toward the table, the pitcher of water steady in her hand. She didn't look at Marcus. She looked at Sebastian. She reached the table and placed a fresh napkin over the spill, absorbing the water before it could drip onto his trousers. Sebastian didn't look up. He was staring at the city lights, his chest heaving. "I said, leave me alone," he growled. Ella poured fresh water into a new glass. She set it down softly. Then she leaned in, just enough so only he could hear, and spoke. "Of kayle kalkan zararla oturur, beyefendi." Sebastian froze. The air left the balcony. The sounds of Fifth Avenue traffic below seemed to vanish. Slowly, incredibly slowly, Sebastian Demir turned his head to look at the waitress. He blinked, as if trying to process a glitch in the matrix. "Excuse me?" Ella kept her eyes lowered respectfully, but her voice was steady. "It is a proverb, sir. He who rises in anger sits down with a loss. Your brother is baiting you. If you scream, he wins." Sebastian stared at her. For a long moment, he said nothing. He looked at her name tag, then up to her face, really seeing her for the first time. He saw the tired eyes, the intelligent spark behind them, and the absolute lack of fear. "You speak Turkish," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir." "You're American." "I am." "How?" "Life is long, sir, and kitchens are crowded." It was a deflection, and they both knew it. Sebastian picked up the fresh glass of water. He took a sip, his eyes never leaving hers. The rage that had been radiating off him seconds ago had evaporated, replaced by a sharp, predatory curiosity. "What is your name?" "Ella." "Well, Ella," Sebastian said, unbuttoning his sodden suit jacket and tossing it over the chair. "You just saved this restaurant from a lawsuit, because I was about 5 seconds away from throwing this table through that window." "I know," she said simply. "That is why I poured the water." Sebastian let out a short, dry laugh. "You heard what I said on the phone." "I did." "How much?" Ella paused. She knew the rules of the service industry. See everything, say nothing. But she also knew that Sebastian Demir was a shark, and you didn't lie to sharks. "Enough to know that your brother is trying to sign the maritime deal in Istanbul behind your back, and that if he does, you lose the company." Sebastian's expression darkened. The vulnerability was gone. The CEO was back. "You know too much for a waitress, Ella. And you shout too loud for a CEO, Mr. Demir." She regretted the words as soon as they left her mouth. She heard Marcus gasp from the doorway. She had just insulted a man who could buy the building she lived in and turn it into a parking lot. But Sebastian didn't yell. A slow smile spread across his face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who had just found a weapon he didn't know he needed. "Marcus!" Sebastian barked, not looking away from Ella. The manager scurried over, looking ready to faint. "Yes, Mr. Demir. I am so sorry about her. She's new. She's fired immediately. I'll have security. If you fire her," Sebastian said calmly, "I will buy this hotel chain solely to ensure you never work in hospitality again." Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I beg your pardon?" Sebastian stood up. He was taller than Ella had realized. He loomed over her, smelling of expensive cologne and ozone. "Shift is over, Ella," Sebastian said. "Get your coat." "Sir?" Ella asked, confused. "You understand the language," Sebastian said, checking his Patek Philippe watch. "And you understand the stakes. My brother is landing in New York in 2 hours. I need a translator who isn't on the company payroll. Someone he won't recognize. Someone invisible." He leaned in close. "You want a tip? Tonight, your tip is a job offer. Come with me, and I'll pay you more in 1 night than you make here in a year." Ella looked at Marcus, who was nodding frantically, signaling her to go. She looked back at Sebastian. She saw the desperation hidden behind the arrogance. She needed the money. Her rent was overdue, and her mother's medical bills were piling up on the kitchen counter. "I get paid in cash," Ella said. Sebastian grinned. "Deal." The ride in the back of the Maybach was silent. The city blurred past, the neon lights of Times Square, the dark expanse of Central Park. Ella sat on the pristine leather seat, clutching her worn-out purse, acutely aware of the grease stain on her left shoe. Sebastian sat on the opposite side, typing furiously on a tablet. He hadn't spoken since they left the restaurant. "Where are we going?" Ella finally asked. "My home." "The Obsidian Tower," Sebastian replied without looking up. "We need a secure environment." "For a translation job?" Sebastian stopped typing. He looked at her, his eyes weary. "Ella, do you know who my family is?" "The Demir family. Steel, shipping, logistics. Based in Istanbul and London." "Correct. We are worth billions. And right now, we are in the middle of a civil war. My father passed away 6 months ago. He left the company to me. My younger brother, Kerem, believes it should be his. He has aligned himself with our biggest competitor, Jasper Sterling." Ella stiffened at the name. Jasper Sterling. Sebastian noticed the reaction. "You know the name?" "Everyone in New York knows Jasper Sterling," she said quickly, forcing her voice to remain neutral. "Real estate tycoon, ruthless." "Worse than ruthless," Sebastian corrected. "He's a vulture. He wants to acquire Demir Global to dismantle it and sell the pieces. Kerem is too stupid to see that Sterling is using him. They are meeting tonight via a secure video link to finalize a preliminary agreement. I have let's call it a listening device, in the room where Kerem is staying." "You bugged your brother?" "He is trying to steal my legacy. I would bug the Pope if he were working with Jasper Sterling." Sebastian slid a folder across the leather seat. "This is a non-disclosure agreement. Sign it. If you repeat anything you hear tonight to anyone, the press, the police, your mother, my lawyers will bury you so deep you'll need a map to find sunlight." Ella took the pen. She didn't hesitate. She signed Ella Vance with a flourish. She had secrets of her own, secrets that made Sebastian's corporate espionage look like child's play. If he knew who she really was, he wouldn't just fire her. He'd likely have her arrested. The car pulled up to the Obsidian Tower, a needle of black glass piercing the sky near Columbus Circle. The doorman opened the car door before the vehicle had even come to a complete stop. "Mr. Demir, welcome back." They took the private elevator to the penthouse. The doors opened directly into a living room that was larger than Ella's entire apartment building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a 360-degree view of Manhattan. Modern art that looked like splashes of blood on snow hung on the walls. It was cold, beautiful, and empty. "Sit," Sebastian commanded, pointing to a long glass table covered in monitors and audio equipment. A young man with messy hair and thick glasses was typing on 3 keyboards at once. "This is Toby," Sebastian said, "my head of cybersecurity. Toby, this is the translator." Toby looked up, blinking. She's a waitress. She speaks the language, Sebastian snapped. Is the feed live? Audio is clear. Kerem is in the suite at the St. Regis. Sterling is on the line from London. But they're speaking in, well, it sounds like gibberish mixed with code. Sebastian handed Ella a headset. Put these on. Tell me everything they say. Every nuance. Every hesitation. Ella put the headset on. The heavy noise-cancelling cups sealed her off from the luxury of the penthouse. Suddenly, she was in a hotel room at the St. Regis. She heard the clinking of glass, the rustle of paper, and then a voice she recognized from the tabloids, Kerem Demir. "Abi ne derse desin, umurumda değil," Kerem was saying. "Hisseleri bu gece devredeceğim." Ella began to translate, her voice low and monotonous. He says, "I don't care what my brother says. I will transfer the shares tonight." Sebastian paced behind her, his hands clenched behind his back. "Keep going." A second voice crackled on the line. Deep, smooth, British. Jasper Sterling. "Ask him about the contingency clause," Sterling said in English. Kerem replied in Turkish, likely assuming Sterling had a translator, but wanting to obscure the specifics from anyone listening in the room. "Ona limanlardaki güvenlik açıklarından bahsetmedim. Eğer öğrenirse, anlaşma iptal olur." Ella's eyes widened. She looked up at Sebastian. "What?" Sebastian demanded. "What did he say?" "He said—" Ella swallowed hard. "He said he hasn't told Sterling about the security breaches at the ports. He says if Sterling finds out, the deal is off." Sebastian stopped pacing. "Security breaches? What security breaches? Our ports are impenetrable." "He's hiding something," Ella said, pressing the headphones tighter to her ears. "He's talking about Operation Black Sand. Does that mean anything to you?" Sebastian's face went pale. Black Sand. That was a theoretical protocol my father developed for smuggling routes in case of war. It was never supposed to be active. "Kerem is activating it," Ella said, listening intently. "He's using the company ships to move something illegal for Sterling. That's the deal. It's not just a merger, Sebastian. It's a smuggling operation." Sebastian slammed his fist onto the glass table. "That idiot! He's going to turn Demir Global into a criminal enterprise. The international authorities will seize everything we own." He looked at Ella. "I need to stop this meeting. Now." "You can't," Toby interjected. "If you barge it in, they'll know you were listening. Kerem will deny everything, destroy the evidence, and sue you for espionage. You need a proof." Sebastian ran a hand through his hair. "I need to know what they are moving. Ella, listen. What is the cargo?" Ella closed her eyes, focusing on the static-filled audio. Kerem was whispering now. "Emanetler hazır. Eski Sovyet blogundan geliyorlar. Uranyum değil ama ona yakın. Kırmızı cıva diyorlar." Ella ripped the headphones off, her hands shaking. "What?" Sebastian grabbed her shoulders. "Ella, talk to me." "Red mercury," she whispered. "He claims they are moving red mercury." Toby laughed nervously. "That's a myth. It's a hoax substance from the Cold War. It doesn't exist." "It doesn't matter if it exists or not," Sebastian said grimly. "If the intelligence agencies think we are trading in nuclear material precursors, they will drone strike my ships before they leave the harbor." He looked at Ella. The intensity in his eyes was hypnotic. "You are not just a translator anymore. You are the only person in this room who knows the truth besides me. I need you to help me destroy my brother." "I'm just a waitress," Ella protested, backing away. "This is treason. This is dangerous." "You were a waitress," Sebastian corrected. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a checkbook. He scribbled a number and tore it out. He handed it to her. Ella looked at the check. $50,000. "This is for tonight," Sebastian said. "Stay with me. Help me navigate this mess, and I will add a 0 to that number by the end of the month." Ella looked at the check. It was enough to pay for her mother's surgery. It was enough to disappear. But there was something else. Jasper Sterling was involved, the man who had ruined her father, the man responsible for her family's fall from grace. This wasn't just a job. It was an opportunity for revenge. Ella folded the check and put it in her pocket. She looked Sebastian in the eye. "I don't just want the money," she said. "What do you want?" "If we take down Sterling," Ella said, her voice hard, "I want to be the one to push the button." Sebastian studied her. He saw the darkness in her, the same darkness that lived in him. He extended his hand. "Deal." The next morning, the waitress named Ella Vance ceased to exist. In her place stood Ella Demir, or at least, that was the cover story. "Executive assistant," Sebastian said, throwing a pile of clothes onto the bed in the guest room where Ella had slept for 4 fitful hours. "And for the purpose of the upcoming gala at the Met, you are my distant cousin from the Bursa branch of the family. It explains the Turkish, and it explains why you are always by my side." Ella held up a dress. It was a sleek, black Alexander McQueen. "I can't wear this. People will recognize me. I served half the board members' pasta last week." "People see what they expect to see," Sebastian said, adjusting his cufflinks in the mirror. "Last night, you were the help. Today you are power. Wear the clothes, lift your chin, and look at them like they owe you money. No one will recognize you." He was right and he was wrong. The transformation took 3 hours. A stylist team brought in by Sebastian cut her hair into a sharp, asymmetrical bob. They applied makeup that highlighted her high cheekbones and made her eyes look fiercer. When she put on the McQueen dress and the Louboutin heels, she looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. She looked like a killer. "We have a meeting at One World Trade Center," Sebastian called from the hallway. "The board of directors. I'm going to announce that I'm freezing all maritime assets due to a logistical audit. It will stall Kerim's shipment." "They will revolt," Ella said, walking out. "The stock will drop." Sebastian stopped. He looked at her, his eyes lingering on the transformation. For a second, he looked impressed. "Let it drop. I'll buy the shares back at a discount. Are you ready?" "Yes." They entered the boardroom of Demir Global at 10 a.m. sharp. The room was filled with 20 old men in grey suits. At the head of the table sat a man who looked like a younger, softer version of Sebastian, Kerem Demir. Kerem stood up, smiling a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Brother, you're late." And he looked at Ella, his eyes narrowing. "Who is this?" "This is Ella," Sebastian said, taking his seat at the head of the table. "My new chief of staff. She will be handling all internal communications regarding the audit." "Audit?" Kerem's smile faltered. "What audit?" "The one I just authorized," Sebastian said, sliding a file across the table. "Effective immediately, all Demir Global ships are grounded. No cargo moves in or out of Istanbul without my personal signature." The room erupted. The board members began shouting. Kerem turned purple. "You can't do this!" Kerem slammed his hand on the table. "We have contracts. We have deadlines." "We also have a reputation," Sebastian said calmly. Kerem glared at Sebastian, then turned his gaze to Ella. He switched to Turkish, assuming the board couldn't understand, and that this new chief of staff was just eye candy. "Bu kadın kim? Yatağına aldığın fahiselerden biri mi?" "Who is this woman? One of the whores you took to your bed?" The room went quiet, though the Americans didn't understand the insult. They just heard the tone. Sebastian's jaw tightened. He was about to stand up, to defend her, but Ella beat him to it. She didn't shout. She didn't throw water. She simply poured herself a glass of sparkling water, took a sip, and looked Kerem dead in the eye. "Ben fahis de gilim." "Kerem Bey," she said, her Turkish accent flawless, refined, aristocratic, better than his. "Ben abinizin sizi hapishaneden kurtarmak için tuttuğu kişiyim. O yüzden çeneni kapa ve otur." "I am not a whore, Mr. Kerem. I am the person your brother hired to save you from prison. So shut your mouth and sit down." Kerem looked like he had been slapped. The color drained from his face. He slumped back into his chair. The board members looked from Kerem to Ella to Sebastian. Sebastian leaned back in his chair, a look of pure triumph on his face. He winked at Ella. "Now," Sebastian said to the stunned room, "Item 1 on the agenda, the Istanbul shipment." But as the meeting progressed, Ella felt a vibration in her pocket. It wasn't her phone. It was the secure burner phone Sebastian had given her. She checked it under the table. A text message. Unknown number. "I know who you really are, Ella Vance. Or should I say, Ella Sterling? Meet me in the lobby in 5 minutes, or everyone knows." Ella's blood turned to ice. She looked up. Kerem was sulking. Sebastian was commanding the room. But someone else knew. Someone knew that her name wasn't originally Vance, that her father wasn't a nobody, that her biological father was the man they were trying to destroy. Jasper Sterling. She excused herself, her legs feeling like lead. She walked out of the boardroom, past the secretaries, and toward the elevator. She had to know who sent the text. As the elevator doors opened in the lobby, she didn't see a stranger. She saw a man in a chauffeur's uniform holding a sign, but the sign didn't have a name. It had a symbol, a silver falcon, the family crest of the Sterlings. The chauffeur approached her. "Miss Sterling, your father is waiting for you in the Bentley outside." Ella stopped. If she got in that car, she betrayed Sebastian. If she didn't, her secret would come out, and Sebastian would destroy her. She looked back toward the elevators, toward the man who had given her a chance. Then she looked at the car. She took a step toward the revolving doors. The interior of the Bentley Mulsanne smelled of aged mahogany and cold ambition. It was a scent Ella hadn't smelled since she was 12 years old, the day she and her mother were escorted out of the Sterling estate with 2 suitcases and a shattered future. Jasper Sterling sat in the shadows of the rear seat. He didn't look like a villain from a movie. He looked worse. He looked like a perfectly respectable, silver-haired investment banker who would foreclose on an orphanage without blinking if the spreadsheet told him to. He didn't turn his head when Ella slid onto the seat beside him. The doors locked with a soft, decisive thud. "Ella Vance," Sterling said, his voice smooth as velvet over gravel. "A quaint choice. Your mother's maiden name. So pedestrian." "It's better than Sterling," Ella spat, her facade of cool control cracking instantly in his presence. "At least Vance doesn't stand for destroying your own family." Jasper finally looked at her. His eyes were pale blue, like winter ice. They were her eyes. "Spare me the melodrama, my dear. I didn't destroy our family. I pruned it. Your mother was weak. She was a liability. And you." He looked at her. Alexander McQueen dress, the haircut, the shoes. "You seem to have done quite well for yourself since you stopped waiting tables 12 hours ago." "How did you know?" Ella demanded. "I know everything that happens in this city that involves more than $1 million. Did you really think you could waltz into Sebastian Demir's life, humiliate his brother, and sit at his board table without my notice?" He chuckled softly. "I recognized you the moment I saw the security footage from the Pierre. You always had that defiant tilt to your chin. Ella reached for the door handle, useless as it was. Does Sebastian know? That his shiny new weapon against me is actually my daughter? The daughter of the man he hates most in this world? Jasper shook his head. No, he thinks you are a plucky nobody with a knack for languages, and we are going to keep it that way. Ella froze. We? You are going to work for me, Ella. Never. I am helping Sebastian stop you. I heard the tapes. The Red Mercury. You're insane. Jasper waved his hand dismissively. The Red Mercury is a distraction, a magic trick to keep intelligence agencies looking left while I move right. I don't care about smuggling. I care about acquisition. I want Demir Global. And you are now perfectly positioned to give it to me. Why would I ever help you? Ella hissed. You let Mum die in a state-run hospice while you bought yachts. Correction. Your mother is alive. Barely. Jasper tapped a manicured finger on his knee. She is currently in the finest private memory care facility in upstate New York. Her bills, which amount to $20,000 a month, are paid by an anonymous trust. My trust. The world spun around Ella. You're paying for her care. If I stop paying tomorrow, she goes back to the state facility. She won't last a month. Jasper leaned closer. His breath smelled of peppermints. Here is the deal. You stay close to Sebastian. You be his translator, his confidant, his little Turkish bulldog. But you report to me. You tell me his strategy, his weaknesses, his passwords. When the time is right, you will help me deliver the death blow to his company. Ella felt sick. She thought of Sebastian, the way he had looked at her in the boardroom, with respect, even admiration. He trusted her because she was an outsider. And if I refuse? If I tell Sebastian the truth right now? Then I cut off your mother's funding today. And then I tell Sebastian who you really are anyway. Do you think a paranoid, vengeful man like Sebastian Demir will believe you were just an innocent victim? No. He will think you were my plant from the beginning. He will destroy you. Jasper smiled, a terrifying paternal smile. You are trapped, my dear, between the lion and the viper. The only question is, which one do you want to be bitten by? The car pulled over to the curb. They were blocks away from one-world trade. Get out, Jasper commanded. Go back to your master. Tonight is the Met Gala. Sebastian will be there to posture. I expect a full report on his conversations by midnight. Ella stumbled out of the Bentley. The city air felt thin. She watched the car glide away into traffic, looking like a hearse. She wasn't just waiting tables anymore. She was serving two devils, and she knew with chilling certainty that before this was over, one of them was going to own her soul. The Metropolitan Museum of Art was transformed into a palace of light and ego. The theme of the gala was empires and dynasties, a cruel irony that wasn't lost on Ella as she walked the red carpet on the arm of Sebastian Demir. Flashbulbs popped like fireworks, creating a blinding strobe effect. Reporters shouted their names. Mr. Demir, is it true you're hostile taking over your own brother? Who is the mystery woman, Sebastian? Sebastian ignored them all. He looked devastating in a custom Tom Ford tuxedo. He held Ella's arm firmly, guiding her through the madness with the ease of a man born into the spotlight. Ella wore crimson, a sleek, dangerous gown that looked like it was woven from blood and rubies. She held her head high, channeling the persona Sebastian had crafted for her, while inside she was crumbling. "You're tense," Sebastian murmured in her ear as they ascended the grand staircase. His breath on her neck sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with fear. "I'm not used to this many cameras," she lied. "Just look at me," Sebastian said. He stopped on the stairs, forcing her to turn towards him. The cameras went wild. For a second, amidst the chaos, it felt like they were alone. He looked into her eyes with an intensity that made her knees weak. "You look incredible, Ella. Tonight, you are not my assistant. You are my equal. Let them see it." His belief in her was a physical weight. Every compliment felt like a betrayal. Inside the great hall, the air smelled of expensive champagne and even more expensive perfume. The power players of the world were mingling beneath ancient Egyptian statues. Ella spotted them instantly. Karem was near the temple of Denda, knocking back scotch and looking nervously at his phone. And standing near a display of Roman busts, watching everything like a hawk, was Jasper Sterling. "Stay close," Sebastian said, his voice dropping to business tones. "Kerem is sweating. That means he's trying to move the cargo tonight during the distraction of the gala. I need you to work the room. Listen to the Turkish diplomats. See if anyone is discussing irregular port activity." Ella nodded and slipped away into the crowd. She felt Sterling's eyes on her back. The next 2 hours were a blur of espionage. Ella charmed an ambassador from Ankara in fluent Turkish, learning that Karem had indeed been bribing customs officials. She reported this to Sebastian, who looked grim. "He's moving it through a shell company," Sebastian said, cornering Ella near the champagne tower. "I need the name of that company to block it." "I'm trying," Ella whispered. Just then, a waiter bumped into Ella, spilling a drop of champagne on her crimson dress. "Oh, terribly sorry, miss," the waiter mumbled. As he dabbed at the dress with a napkin, he pressed something cold and hard into Ella's palm, a tiny silver USB drive. The waiter looked up. It was one of Sterling's men. "From your father," the man whispered. "The server room is downstairs near the coat check. Upload it before the final toast, or he makes the call to the nursing home." He vanished into the crowd. Ella clutched the USB drive until it cut into her skin, the ultimatum. She looked across the room. Sebastian was laughing with the mayor, looking confident, powerful, and strangely happy. He caught her eye and gave her a subtle nod of encouragement. He trusted her. She looked toward the Roman statues. Sterling raised his glass to her in a silent toast. She hated him, but she loved her mother more. "Excuse me," Ella murmured to a nearby socialite. "I need the powder room." She headed toward the stairs, moving downward, away from the light, toward the server room. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Every step felt like a betrayal of the man who had given her a chance when no one else would. She found the unmarked door near the bustling coat check. It was locked. She used the master keycard Sebastian had entrusted her with. The server room was humming with blue lights and cooling fans. It was the brain of the gala's security and network. She found the main console. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the USB drive. "Just plug it in," she told herself. "Save your mother. Sebastian is a billionaire. He'll survive whatever corporate sabotage this is." She hesitated, the drive hovering over the port. She thought of Sebastian's voice on the stairs. "You are my equal." "What are you doing, Ella?" The voice was ice cold. It came from the doorway behind her. Ella spun around, dropping the USB drive. It skittered across the metal floor. Sebastian stood in the doorway. He wasn't looking at her with admiration anymore. His face was a mask of betrayal, so profound it looked like physical pain. He held up his phone. On the screen was a live security feed of the server room. Sebastian, I can explain," Ella stammered, backing away. Sebastian stepped into the room, kicking the door shut behind him. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "Explain!" Sebastian's voice was terrifyingly quiet. He walked over and picked up the silver USB drive. He looked at it, then at her. Did Kerem pay you? Was 50,000 not enough? Did you need more to sell me out? It's not Kerem, Ella whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Then who? Who are you working for? He grabbed her shoulders, shaking her violently. Tell me the truth. Who are you? The door behind Sebastian opened again. She's working for me, Demir. Jasper Sterling stood there, looking impeccable and smug. He walked into the server room as if he owned it. Sebastian let go of Ella as if she were radioactive. He stared at Sterling, then back at Ella, the pieces falling together in his brilliant, furious mind. The resemblance, the eyes. No, Sebastian breathed, stepping back. You are his daughter. Tell him, Ella, Sterling said cruelly. Tell him how you played him for a fool from the very first glass of water. Ella looked at Sebastian. She wanted to scream the truth about her mother, about the blackmail. But the look in Sebastian's eyes stopped her cold. The light was gone. It was replaced by the same darkness she had seen on the balcony at Le Jardin, but magnified 1,000 times. He didn't see a woman he respected. He didn't even see a waitress. He saw a Sterling. "Get out," Sebastian said. His voice was devoid of emotion. It was dead. "Sebastian, please listen," Ella begged, reaching for him. "Don't touch me," he recoiled. "You and your father. Get out of my sight before I forget that I am a civilized man." Sterling chuckled, taking Ella's arm. "Come along, my dear. I think our work here is done. The seed of doubt is planted. That's far more effective than any malware." Sterling dragged a sobbing Ella out of the room, leaving Sebastian alone in the humming blue light of the servers, holding the piece of evidence that proved the only person who understood him was the one person born to destroy him. The rain in New York City didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Ella stood on the curb outside the Metropolitan Museum, the hem of her ruined crimson gown soaked in muddy water. The Bentley was gone. Jasper Sterling hadn't just discarded her. He had obliterated her. "You served your purpose," he had said, checking his messages as the driver idled 2 blocks away. "Sebastian knows who you are. He will never trust you again. You are burned, Ella, and burned assets are a liability." "What about my mother?" Ella had asked, her voice trembling. "I've already called the facility," Sterling replied, not even looking at her. "The payments have ceased effective immediately. I believe they have a policy about discharging patients with unpaid balances within 24 hours. Good luck, my dear." Then the door had opened, and she was left on the street. Ella had no money, no job, no allies, and the only man who had ever looked at her like she mattered now hated her. She walked. She walked 40 blocks in the rain, the expensive heels blistering her feet until she took them off and walked barefoot. She walked to the 24-hour diner where she used to work before Le Jardin. The night manager, a kindly man named Sal, let her sit in the back booth and gave her a cup of coffee and a towel. She sat there, shivering, staring at the steam rising from the mug. She thought about giving up. She thought about calling the state hospital and preparing them for her mother's return. Then she remembered the look in Sebastian's eyes in the server room. The hurt. He didn't hate her because she was a Sterling. He hated her because he thought she had chosen to be one. "He thinks I sold him out for money." She couldn't live with that. She could lose the guy, she could lose the job, but she refused to lose her honor. She reached into her purse. She still had the burner phone Sebastian gave her. He would have blocked the number by now, surely. But she didn't need to call him. She needed to use the access it still had to the company intranet, unless Toby had scrubbed her credentials. She logged in. Access granted. Sebastian was so angry he had forgotten to revoke her digital key. Ella navigated through the company shipping logs. She looked for the Black Sand Protocol. Nothing. Kerem was covering his tracks well, but Ella remembered something Kerem had said on the wiretap, a phrase she hadn't translated fully because it seemed irrelevant at the time. Limanen Fortumbolgesi, Gece Yarısı. Port Zone 4. Midnight. She checked the time. 11:15 p.m. If Kerem and Sterling were moving the Red Mercury tonight, they were doing it at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, Zone 4. Ella stood up. She borrowed a trench coat from the lost and found bin at the diner to cover her ruined dress. She looked at her reflection in the window, hair matted, makeup running, eyes wild. She didn't look like a waitress or an executive. She looked like someone with nothing left to lose. Meanwhile, in the penthouse of the Obsidian Tower, Sebastian Demir was systematically destroying his living room. A crystal vase shattered against the wall. A sculpture was overturned. Toby sat behind his wall of monitors, terrified, typing furiously. "Sir, please," Toby stammered. "You need to stop. The stock is tanking. The board heard rumors about the audit, and they are panicking. If you don't issue a statement, Kerem will call for a vote of no confidence by morning." "Let him!" Sebastian roared, pouring himself a drink with a shaking hand. "Let him take it all. It's all rot anyway. Everyone is a liar. Everyone is a thief. Ella wasn't. Do not say her name." Sebastian spun around, pointing a finger at Toby. "She played me, Toby. She played us all. She is Jasper Sterling's blood. The deceit is in her DNA." "Sir, I checked the USB drive," Toby said quietly. Sebastian paused. "And? It was malware, wasn't it? A virus to wipe our servers?" "No," Toby said. "It was empty." Sebastian frowned. "What?" The drive she was holding. It was blank. Zero data. It wasn't a virus. It was a prop. Sebastian lowered his glass. "A prop? Sterling wanted you to find her with it," Toby said, his voice gaining confidence. "He wanted you to catch her. If she was really a spy, she wouldn't have been caught standing there holding the evidence. She would have plugged it in and left." Sebastian stared at the rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows. The rage in his chest began to cool, replaced by a sick, sinking feeling of realization. "He sacrificed her," Sebastian whispered. "He knew I was falling for her. He used her to break me." Sebastian grabbed his jacket. "Where are you going?" Toby asked. "To find her." "Sir, you can't just drive around New York. She could be anywhere." "She's not anywhere," Sebastian said, his eyes sharpening. "She's stubborn. If she's innocent, she's not hiding. She's trying to fix it." His phone buzzed, a notification from the company server. "User E. Vance has accessed shipping manifests. Terminal 4. Sebastian ran for the elevator. "Call security. Get the team to the Navy Yard. Now!" The Brooklyn Navy Yard was a graveyard of rusted metal and shadows. The rain battered the shipping containers, creating a deafening industrial drumbeat. Ella crouched behind a stack of wooden pallets. Her feet were numb, and she was soaked to the bone, but her hand was steady as she held up her phone, recording video. 50 yards away, under the harsh glare of a floodlight, 2 vehicles were parked, a black SUV and a heavy-duty cargo truck. Kerem Demir stood by the truck, shouting at a group of men who were loading a heavy, lead-lined crate. "Dikkatli olun aptallar. O kutuyu düşürürseniz hepimiz oluruz. Be careful, you idiots. If you drop that box, we all die." Jasper Sterling stood by the SUV, holding a black umbrella, looking bored. "Hurry up, Kerem," Sterling called out in English. "The buyer is waiting in Singapore. I want this ship out of the harbor in 20 minutes. Ella zoomed in. She captured Kerem's face. She captured Sterling. And most importantly, she captured the markings on the crate. Hazardous material. Class 7. Radioactive. She had it, the proof that would send them both to federal prison for life. She hit send, uploading the video directly to Sebastian's private cloud server, but the light from her phone screen betrayed her. "Hey!" one of the guards shouted, pointing at the pallets. "Someone is there!" Ella scrambled back, but her bare foot slipped on the wet oil of the pavement. She fell hard. Before she could rise, rough hands grabbed her trench coat. She was hauled into the circle of light. Well, Sterling sighed, looking at her with disappointment. "Like a bad penny, you just keep turning up." Kerem looked at her with pure hatred. "Sen, Hershey Marvetten." You ruined everything." Kerem pulled a gun from his waistband. He didn't hesitate. He raised it, aiming directly at Ella's chest. "No loose ends this time," Kerem spat. Ella closed her eyes. She didn't pray. She just hoped Sebastian got the video. A screech of tires tore through the night. A sleek Maybach roared around the corner of the warehouse, drifting sideways across the wet pavement. It didn't stop. It accelerated, heading straight for the group. Kerem shouted and dove out of the way. The guards scattered. The car slammed into the side of the cargo truck with a sickening crunch of metal. Steam hissed into the air. The driver's door kicked open. Sebastian Demir stepped out. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead, stumbling slightly. But he looked like a demon rising from hell. "Sebastian!" Ella screamed. Kerem scrambled to his feet, raising the gun again. "You are crazy! You wrecked your own car!" "I'll buy another one," Sebastian roared. He didn't look at the gun. He looked at Ella. "Are you hurt?" "No," she cried. "Sebastian, the crate. It's real." "I know," Sebastian said calmly. He turned to his brother. "Put the gun down, Kerem. It's over." "It's not over," Kerem screamed, his hand shaking. "I am taking the company. I am taking the deal." "You are taking nothing but a ride in a police cruiser," Sebastian said. "Look up." Kerem and Sterling looked up. Above the roar of the rain, the rhythmic thup-thup-thup of helicopter blades cut the air. Floodlights from 3 NYPD choppers blinded them. Sirens wailed from the shipyard entrance as a dozen police cruisers and FBI tactical vans swarmed the perimeter. "I forwarded the video you sent me to the FBI," Sebastian said, his voice cutting through the noise. "They take nuclear smuggling very seriously." Jasper Sterling dropped his umbrella. For the first time, his composure shattered. He looked old. He looked defeated. Kerem dropped the gun. He fell to his knees, sobbing into the wet asphalt. Police swarmed the area. Agents tackled Kerem. Sterling was handcuffed against the side of his SUV, protesting about his lawyers. Sebastian ignored the chaos. He walked through the rain toward Ella. She stood there, shivering, muddy and traumatized. He stopped in front of her. He didn't care about the police, the FBI, or the flashing lights. He took off his tuxedo jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. "I should have listened. I should have known." "You were angry," Ella whispered, pulling the jacket tight. "You had every right to be." "No," Sebastian said firmly. He reached out and cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a streak of mud from her cheek. "I pride myself on reading people, on knowing who is lying and who is true. But I let my fear of your father blind me to who you are." He looked deep into her eyes. "And who am I?" Ella asked softly. "You are the woman who ran into a burning building to save me, even after I locked the door," Sebastian said. "You are the bravest person I have ever met." "I did it for my mom," she admitted. "And maybe a little bit for you." Sebastian smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Where is your mother?" "Upstate. They were going to kick her out tonight." Sebastian pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. Marcus? Yes, it's me. Wake up the director of the Mount Sinai VIP wing. I need a suite prepared immediately. Best doctors, 24-hour care. I am sending a helicopter to pick up a patient in upstate New York. Her name is Mrs. Vance. Treat her like she is my mother. Put it on my personal account. He hung up and looked at Ella. She is safe. Forever. Ella burst into tears. She collapsed against his chest, ruining his white shirt with mud and mascara. Sebastian held her tight, burying his face in her wet hair. Why? She sobbed. Why would you do that? Sebastian pulled back slightly. He leaned down and whispered in her ear, in perfect, soft Turkish. Çünkü sen benim diğer yarımsın ve insan diğer yarısını sokakta bırakmaz. Because you are my other half, and a man does not leave his other half in the street. 3 months later. The skyline of New York was crisp and clear. Ella sat on the balcony of the new Demir Global headquarters. She was wearing a cream-colored suit that fit perfectly. Her hair was styled, her skin glowing. She reviewed the documents on the glass table. The acquisition of Sterling Enterprises was complete. Jasper was awaiting trial without bail. Kerem had taken a plea deal and was in a minimum security facility, barred from corporate activity for life. Madam Vice President. Ella looked up. A young intern was standing there, looking terrified, holding a coffee tray. Just Ella, please. She smiled. Mr. Demir is waiting for you in the boardroom. The Japanese delegation is here. Thank you. Ella stood up. She walked through the glass corridors of the empire she now helped rule. She entered the boardroom. The conversation stopped. The Japanese businessman stood up to bow. Sebastian was at the head of the table. He looked up at her. The love in his eyes was not hidden. It was a matter of public record. Gentlemen, Sebastian said, gesturing to Ella, I believe you have met my partner, but I must warn you. He grinned, the same wolfish grin she had seen that first night at the restaurant. Do not try to whisper secrets in front of her. She speaks everything, and she runs this company better than I do. Ella took her seat at the head of the table, right beside him. She poured herself a glass of water from the crystal pitcher. Shall we begin? She asked. Sebastian placed his hand over hers on the table. A silent promise. A partnership of equals. Yes, Sebastian said. Let's begin. And that is how a waitress with a secret took down 2 billionaires and stole the heart of a third. It turns out the most powerful language in the world isn't money, and it isn't Turkish. It's the truth, spoken when everyone else is lying. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, romance, and justice, please give this video a like. It really helps the channel grow and tells us you want more stories like this. Who was your favorite character? Was it Sebastian for his redemption or Ella for her courage? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new drama. We have a billionaire boss story coming next week that you won't believe. Thanks for watching, listening,